And then you can never, just don't pull an Elon Musk and you'll be all right.
Yeah, exactly. No Dogecoin
No,
comments.
no, that's not exactly.
All right, we're ready to roll. Let's go.
Exactly. I love it. Hey, so Phil Shoemaker, Home Point, welcome to the Walk Podcast. Thanks for coming on, man. I know we've talked about doing this for a little while. We used to work together a lot, and it's good to see your face. I'm proud of what you've accomplished, and I'm looking forward to kind of getting caught up on it.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate that, and looking forward to our chat. So,
where geographically, where are you? I can see the sky outside, but where are you?
I'm up in Ann Arbor now.
You are.
Yeah, I have a hard time not jumping, all the way in. So when I joined Home Point, I moved up here from Dallas. So
how was that for the family making the move? How long had you been in Dallas?
Man, I was in Dallas like 11 years.
Wow.
Yeah. It was it's funny. It was really tough for them initially, but then we got up here and they Ann Arbor's a cool place because it's small, but it kind of it has that city vibe, and
right.
The kids can kind of go anywhere they want. It feels really safe, I mean, not that Dallas isn't, but all the traffic and just the sheer scale of it, it's, you have a lot more freedom, I think, as a kid up here. And so they like it. It took me a little bit to get over that. I mean, Dallas is a cool place, so it's just, there's so much to do there, and the food's great and all. And
you knew the spots. I mean, that was your backyard.
Yeah, that's right. I got you, as you know, I got plugged in pretty well there.
Mm-hmm.
But no, we're liking it. Yeah, Ann Arbor's a good place. I will say the weather right now, you can't beat it. I mean, it's 70 degrees and sunny, it's green, and it's just beautiful.
There's awesome. There's no summertime tornadoes and microbursts in Ann Arbor like there is in Dallas, right?
No. I mean, you get some sketchy weather here and there, but it's pretty cool. It's just the winters, and in the winters, it's not even, it's cold. It's not really that or the snow. It's really gray. And our thing is we're gonna just kind of get out for a couple weeks every winter, and I think that makes it okay.
Make your trip somewhere where it's sunny, or get you one of those UV lights for your desk. Plus, I think we've all been trained to take a bunch of vitamin D now since the pandemic.
Lots of vitamin D, man. That's the key, or so I'm told. So,
did you make the move geographically pre-pandemic or during the pandemic? How was that from a timing perspective?
Yeah, so we actually moved up here. Man, what was it? It was it was the middle of 19. And then just as we were kind of getting seated, the COVID hit February-ish. And so that did kind of suck.
I bet that was really hard. I mean, you can't get out and meet your neighbors.
No, we're still kind of dealing with that a little bit. And it's actually harder on our kids. It's just really hard to
I bet
plugged in when they haven't really met anyone and they're doing school remote. That was difficult, but things I guess they're kind of calming down. It seems like we're, maybe we're just getting used to it. That could be it too. It's
that's kind of the scary part. I worry that we are kind of getting used to it. Remind me how old your kids are?
My son's 15, my daughter's 12. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So they're plenty old to feel the effects of that change.
Yeah, it was tough there for a while, but they've gotten back to, I guess, for a while, kids didn't feel or parents didn't feel doing play dates and stuff like that. And we've my daughter's got some good friends, my son's got some good, so they're starting to get plugged in, which is helping a lot. But it was tough there early on, and then I was working crazy hours, and it was tough.
and not home to help support managing everybody's emotions while they're going through the move, and Bill's hiding behind his office door. I can picture it. I
got in trouble a couple times, but actually that's one of the benefits of COVID is it really, and I did a lot of traveling the last few weeks, and I felt it. It's I don't like the traveling, man. I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna do it a little more strategically. It's really nice, and being a part of your family, and it's just that part of it was good for me. It did kind of show me maybe what I've been missing.
It's probably really good for you. Did you guys, a lot of folks that we work with took that opportunity to do like a long-term rental somewhere super sunny, like in Florida or California. Did you guys do anything like that?
Yeah, so we actually did, 'cause we have, my family's down in Tucson, Arizona. My wife's family's in Phoenix. So we actually rented an RV and drove across the country, and then we turned in the RV. We stayed in hotels and a B&B for about a month in Arizona, and then
Okay.
rented an RV. Hit some friends in Dallas on the way back. Hung out there, and then came back. It was fun, but it's also tough to be away from your house for that long.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
You don't have any animals, do you?
No, we have a dog.
You
Yeah,
took the dog in the RV?
yeah, he was
Yeah,
like,
that works, I guess.
it was a party, man. I think the kids loved it on the way out. Coming back was that was tough because everyone just wanted to get back.
They were tired and beat and kind of over it.
Yeah, it's 3 days out there.
Were you able to get a lot of work done in the RV?
No. I did calls. I mainly drove.
You weren't sitting in the back. Your wife was at the wheel. That wasn't happening.
That was part of the deal. I grew up with, that's what my family did for vacations. We had an RV, and so
That's great.
used to that. But no, man, it was kind of nice, but we did miss the normal, we didn't take our first vacation really until it was like, I think last month. We went to Florida just for a week, just to go somewhere, sit on a beach kind of thing. It was nice.
And just turn it off for a minute.
Yeah.
You mentioned sit on a beach. I have a memory of a story you told me about a beach that you sat on once.
The finger story, yeah.
Do you want to tell that story?
You want me to tell a story here?
Sure.
Okay.
Hey, on the walk, we don't talk about things like conservatorship and what Fannie and Freddie are doing. We just get to know each other, man.
That's okay, man. I'd much prefer this. Well, actually, not this story. Yeah, it was.
This is a good story, though.
It was actually the last time I was in Mexico. I went down. This was maybe, I think it was 2014. So it was a while. It was like 7 years, and we rented with a couple, some friends that we had. So it was like 4 or 5 couples, I think. We rented this house on the beach, thing, this really remote town. It's called Sayulita.
So we just went to Sayulita. Drew and Kirk and myself, the three of us and the wives and girlfriends, we went to Sayulita. So I know the spot.
You do. So on that, in the center of town there on the beach, there's that guy that rents those chairs. That's where
we went into town multiple times. We didn't stay right in town, but we went in 3 or 4 times to eat and hang out and stuff.
It's a cool spot. And so
super cool spot.
You go there to learn to surf, right? So you guys are big surfers. Yep. And and which I tried once. I'm not, I think I'm too old for that. But
no, you're not. Stop it.
It was a second to last day, and we just like 10 o'clock in the morning. Went down the beach, rented these chairs, and I'm going to sit down, and it was one of those folding chairs, and I go to pull the chair up, and when I did that, it unlatched the back just a little bit, such that when my weight hit it, it came unlatched, and it was like a pair of wooden shears, and it cut off about 1/2 inch of my finger. Which of course, I fall down, and my wife and my best friends there, they're laughing at me, and then I stand up, and I got this, finger with blood just kind of squirting.
Oh my gosh! And you're on the beach in Sayulita.
It was horrible, man. And it took me like 2 hours to get to a doctor. It was like some, I don't know, hole in the wall place, and no one spoke English. Luckily, my friend's wife spoke Spanish, and so they like, the hardest part was they had to numb it to clean it, and it was really painful because they have to numb you starting your wrist, and so they kind of work.
Oh yeah, right.
And they hit the nerve until they get to the top. So I numb it, and the guy cleans it up. He's like, come back in the morning. So my flight out was the next afternoon. He's like, come back and I'll check it out, and. So of course, they give me some prescription to some medicine. It turns out it's like some crazy high dose of Advil that's illegal in the U.S. because it
nice.
So it didn't work at all. But I show up in the morning, and the guy's like unwraps it, and he's looking at it, and he's like, "Oh no," which is not what you want to hear with a
in Mexico, in a foreign country, when you're still 2 hours away from the airport before you can even begin to get back home.
That's right. So he's like. And so she's like interpreting what he's saying. He's like, there's this artery, I need to suture it up. I'm like, oh man. So they had to numb it up again. Like it was really painful. And then they like do the suture in this end of my severed finger, and which of course I'd come to find out they did not have to do. And so I went back and get into a plastic surgeon, and they do this surgery it's called a skin flap, where they actually take they take like a portion of your finger down here, and they moved it up to the top, and the artery and the nerve and everything, and they kind of remade the tip of my finger. But it was actually kind of funny, the contrast of the medical systems. It's like at the end, I can't remember what it was, but I think it was like $500 or something, when we're going to check out, and
total $500 total.
Everyone's reaching in their pockets, and we're pulling out pesos and dollars. And I think we got to because they didn't take credit cards, cash. They got to like $450, and the guy's like, good enough, And so, and then of course we get home, and I go to the surgeon, and they put me out, and I'm out for a few hours. They do the surgery and wake up, and and then a couple weeks later, get a bill for like $20,000
from your guy.
Yeah, it was like the insurance covered part of it, and then there was a
oh man, that's crazy. What happened to that chair? Did you save it and hang it up in your office?
My wife went back to actually look for the thing, and it's a good thing she didn't find it. because apparently that's where people go wrong, is they try
to attach it.
Yeah, and it doesn't end well, but couldn't find it. But the guy had taken brushed off the chair and already rented it to another group of people.
Hopefully somebody didn't mistake it for like a piece of a churro or something.
Oh man, it was probably a street treat for a.
Is that bad? Did I go too far?
I'm just not sure why you think it was a churro.
I don't know. I remember, Phil remembers losing the finger in Sayulita. I remember the churro guy in Sayulita.
Oh yeah, it was, I remember that the car, he had the blowtorch
on the street with the. It was insane. So us gringos, you think you've had a churro from Taco Bell or whatever, and that's a churro, and then you go to Sayulita and get the guy on the street. I've never tasted anything like that. That's a churro.
Those are good. We did that a couple nights. We walk in and get it's a cool little town. You're really.
It's a super cool. So what did that experience teach you that made you better at what you do for a living?
Oh man.
It's emergency management, man. Isn't that what mortgage banking is? Pretty close to emergency management sometimes.
Yeah, no, it is. Well, I did learn, this is kind of not directly going to answer your question, but it's funny. I remember sitting there thinking, I can't be the only idiot that's cut off his finger or body part with a beach chair. I remember Googling it, and it was in 7,000 people a year cut off a portion of their body with a folding
beach chair.
Well, a folding table chair in the U.S. And so I will say, since then, I feel like I'm really good at identifying things that could chop off a body part.
Yeah, I bet you are. You're probably one of the only people I know that actually Googled how many people have lost a piece of an appendage with a folding chair or a folding piece of furniture of any kind. Have you thought about starting, you see these commercials for Facebook groups. Have you thought about starting a Facebook group?
Yeah, for survivors of finger from beach chair. No, to answer your question, I don't know if it's. I have gotten a lot more laid back. Less. I take myself a lot. A little less serious these days, and so I don't know if that's just old age kicking in or just experiences like that. It's like I think the older you get, life just sort of humbles you out, and sometimes maybe cutting off half inch of your finger.
Is this what it takes? Look, man,
I do want to say that IKEA has taken a stand.
Whoa, look at that.
See? It's real. And that was it. It was a very similar beach chair to that. That's exactly right. And so the back of it, if it comes unlatched, it's like in your fingers in the middle of that little yeah, exactly. It's like a pair of wooden shears, man. Good luck.
Thomas, that's impressive. For those that are listening on Spotify or whatever, Thomas just was able to pull up an advertisement for a beach chair recall. I think Phil Shoemaker is listed on the complaint maybe somewhere.
No kidding, man. Jeez.
So for the broker partners that get to meet you now that you're traveling again, this is a nice icebreaker if they see this first and they haven't met you in person yet.
Yeah, I've used that a couple times. What's really fun is breaking out the pictures. I got some good pictures of it, but that's not.
You never showed us the. You might have shown my partner Drew the pictures. I remember we had dinner years ago, so at one of your favorite places in the Woodlands or somewhere near Dallas, and I remember that story. It made me laugh out loud. I still think about that whenever I'm unfolding a beach chair. I'm very careful.
See,
because of Phil Shoemaker.
I'm paying it forward. Hopefully I've saved a finger or two with my stories.
Let me tell you though, if it takes losing a portion of your finger to calm yourself down, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to sign up for that.
Well, I guess it just like puts things in perspective, right? It's like, I think it's really easy, to your point, especially in mortgage, it's really easy to get spun up on things, but man, it's like, you got to take what you do seriously. And I take what I do very seriously, but I also leave it at the door now, when I get home. I feel like
good for you. You've always had a really good, and I can say this because I'm lucky enough and fortunate enough to get to meet so many leaders in this particular industry, and then, serve on other groups or nonprofits where I get to meet leaders in other industries. And you're a really healthy mix of someone who has an analyst brain, and someone though that is very relational in the way that you communicate. And I don't know if that's unique, but it is pretty unique. Remind me, you didn't go to college. I mean, you weren't a finance guy in college, right? Weren't you an engineer or of sorts?
Part of it is I guess like a lot of people, I just sort of happened into mortgage. My degree's in electrical engineering, and I actually got into mortgage while I was getting my degree. I met the group that was starting First Magnus, and so I on the very ground floor, and it was actually a really cool group, and it was the time in mortgage where you could take a little more risk on people. I think
right.
A lot of that was bad because of clearly what happened in 2007, but through that experience, I got the ability to do some big things at a young age, which was it was bad for me because there was a time period where I was probably a bit of an ass. I was a little arrogant and thought thought I was the thing, and but it was good because it really did give me exposure to things that people don't normally get at that young of age. But I got on the tech side. I built First Magnus's LOS, and then that ended up taking me because I got involved. I think because I was the young smart guy that built this system. Like, I do a lot of the recruiting stuff. I do a lot of, I got heavy into process, and I just over time started gravitating more and more towards the business side. I think part of it is because, I do, a lot of tech people don't like to interact with people, and somehow I didn't, I got that, like, that side of it as well. Like, I really enjoy the people side of it. But I do, I think just like anyone in life, I mean, you're kind of a product of, you're a combination of who you are, but you're also a product of your environment. And I was lucky in some instances, and I had some really, really awesome people that took interest in me and mentored me, and I got exposed to things that maybe don't normally get exposed to. So I don't know how I got here, but I'm okay. I'm glad.
Well, but that's kind of what makes this industry a little special, though. I mean, there's people within the industry that are actually using their degree, or when they were in high school or college said, I know what I want to do, and they do that within the industry. But most leaders in the industry have similar stories, whether it's a top producing originator or a really successful broker or somebody running a mortgage company. I don't know Willie Newman's story from scratch, and he's a Hall of Famer in this industry for sure. He's also someone, I'm as I'm listening to you speak, you mentioned mentors. So, I know Joe Anderson. Obviously, Joe Anderson, I think, was someone that you would put on that list as a mentor. Certainly Willie Newman over the last several years for you as well. But those are also both people that have that in common with you, I think, which is their brain is very much an engineering type brain, but they have the ability to sit down with a group of people and build relationships and build trust.
Yeah, I think that was a couple things in that. So one, I think mortgage is a very unique industry because it is so heavy relationship centric and people centric, but it's also very complicated, right? And if you look at the best mortgage companies out there, they're run by people that have a very and also with a mindset that's very data centric, right? And the other thing about it is the industry, it also breeds, I think, people that get really comfortable with change. Like that's one thing I'm starting to appreciate more and more the older I get, is most of the time people hold themselves back, right? So they're your sheer nature, human nature is people don't like change. Like you actually subconsciously will resist it. You develop these habits, that kind of puts you down a path, and your subconscious reinforces and to some extent wants you to stay there, whereas if you look at all the good leaders I've worked for, and what I try to constantly live by is get comfortable with change, because it's kind of like working a muscle, man. It's like when you feel something that makes you uncomfortable or you feel that pain, it's actually you changing, it's you being better, it's you moving forward, right? And the other thing I'd say too is the common theme, just since we're on the leadership topic is, I mean, Joe, still to this day, one of my favorite people, Willie, very similar to Joe. Another one was the CEO of First Magnus Jogging, great guy. They're all people that really believed in people and like about making other people successful and putting other people first. And culture was always a big thing. And I believe that's actually one of the distinguishing factors for me in what I think what distinguishes Home Point and what will continue to cause other companies to win over other companies is, oftentimes in this industry, and I would say even corporate America in general, there's too much bias towards the financial side, right? If you look at the average tenure of companies now, it's like some crazy low number. It's like 10 years. Like on average, companies typically last 10 years, which if you go back, 30, 40 years, it was like 50 or 60 years is the average lifespan of a company. And I think the reason for that is that this hyper focus on like driving results quarter after quarter after quarter creates a very short-term mindset. And so I think that to me, my personal belief and what I try to live by and what I think the key to success is in leadership and business is think long-term and never make it about you, and be comfortable with change, because the minute you get stuck on your current course, you're done, man. Because like what worked yesterday isn't what's going to work tomorrow, especially in mortgage, man, because it changes fast, as I think you've seen over the years, Eric. I mean, there's a lot going on.
No, for sure. That was great. There's a lot to unpack there. I'm curious, while it's fresh in my brain, you now being with a company that has gone public.
Yeah.
Is it hard to then reconcile the quarter to quarter piece? Because that really is what public companies are doing, right? So I'm sure you're still doing it, of course, to create the value necessary for your shareholders. But I think you're also talking about how that comes out in a leadership style, not just the fact that you might be doing it on paper, but how is that perceived by those that are counting on you to lead the organization or create value for them individually?
Well, it's kind of both, right? Because I think oftentimes companies get so fixated on, the messaging around one particular quarter that they lose sight of the longer picture. And so I will say this, and that's where I think leadership really matters. And it starts at the top. It starts with, Willie as an example. Like you need a CEO, and that's one of the reasons why I'm here is, absolutely love working for Willie. Like he thinks long term, he has vision, right? He's not making decisions based on short-term things to hit a quarterly goal, right? Not that that's not important. I will say that, I think I've been lucky in that, what I've found with this whole experience with being public is the pressures are not that from a financial standpoint, they're not a lot different than being owned by private equity. What's probably been most surprising to me is that I thought that was the biggest risk, is that somehow the pressures would change, and it would risk our culture, and cause maybe or create risk around short-term thinking versus long-term thinking. It hasn't happened at all. The biggest surprise is it's really more about communication. Like, what I think is most challenging is you become hypersensitive around what you can say and when. And we used to be a company, and we still are, but going public, we were very transparent with all of our constituents and our associates. We were very transparent around our performance, what was going on in the industry, what was working, what wasn't. And now, as you have to be, you can't say that like to just anyone. Like you have to be like somewhat guarded. And so it does kind of change like how you communicate internally as a company. And we've had to sort of adjust to that. In the way we've kind of come up with it is, rather than being so transparent, you have to kind of do it through high level metrics, where we're trying to align teams of people around, hey, here's the common goal we have in terms of, from a metric standpoint, and then you motivate people that way. And so it's just a shift,
Sure.
From a communication standpoint. It's probably been the biggest thing I've seen.
Yeah. I think the people like you and Willie are probably uniquely designed to be able to handle that kind of shift. You were also talking about how dynamic this industry is, that it's constantly changing. Can you point to parts of your career, maybe early on, where you identified change as a negative or a failure, and now maybe you don't? I mean, because as close as you work with people that are commissioned salespeople, right, where one loan could be the end of the world, I'm curious, does any story stand out for you, or moments in your career?
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Well, the first was going through the financial crisis, because that kind of, that really turned everything upside down. But after that, and so, that was when First Magnus folded. We started another company, Stonewater, and then subsequently sold that to Lone Star Funds, and that's what became Caliber Home Loans. It's kind of
well, back up for just a second though. The when that happened, like the day that. So I remember I was actually on vacation at the beach, and we had been doing work with the retail side of First Magnus. I had actually gone out to Tucson, met with Randy. It doesn't matter. What's his name?
Randy Hutchinson. Yeah.
Yeah, I met with him. Great visit. The company put me up at the nicest place I think I'd ever stayed at the time, some fancy golf course that I didn't get to enjoy because we were in meetings all day long. But nonetheless, I remember that. And then not long after, I was on vacation at the beach and got a phone call from one of the leaders of the company that said, I'm out, and we're going down. So on that day, though, did you immediately kick it into, okay, all good, here's what we're going to do next? Or did you have a moment of calling your wife and saying, we need to adjust the budget?
Well, for me personally, it was really stressful because my wife worked there, my mother worked there.
I didn't know that. Wow.
That was a very personal experience to go through. But yeah, I'll be honest with you, that was very reactionary. Like it was almost like a state of shock because it happened so fast. That did happen. It was like, a few months back, we were on the top of the world, and I remember, having discussions with, some of my friends that worked there at the time. I was like, we're never gonna have to look for another job again. It's like, we really, there was a little bit of arrogance. And I was a lot of companies during that time period. It was like, you didn't realize, especially given that I grew up in the industry, that you were more of a product of the market than you were of your own efforts. Not that there weren't a lot of smart people, but it was really easy to, if you were driven and entrepreneurial, you could have made a lot of money in mortgage pre-2007, right? You didn't have to necessarily be special. But honestly, I didn't really understand that until I went through the experience at Caliber and really worked for Joe. I mean, that was really, I think, to get to your question, I think what got me comfortable, almost like addicted to change, is I think the first few years at Caliber, I worked for 10 different CEOs. And so just think about the instability of that. Like you're constantly having to re-justify your own existence and like rebuild those relationships and learn how to kind of, work with the new style. And
well, we know in this industry, when new CEOs come in, generally they bring their people to fill. So you're thinking, who's coming in behind me, right? You're QB1, but you might be QB2 really fast.
Yeah, it was very humbling, and it did. I'll tell you this story. It's funny. Hopefully Joe doesn't get mad. I remember the first time I met Joe, I was going to leave. Long story short, it was really painful early on at Caliber, and I was going to leave. And the head of HR was like, "You need to stay and talk to this Joe Anderson guy because he's going to come in and he's going to help us, turn things around." And so I'm like, okay, I wasn't in a rush, and I'll talk to him. And I remember the first time and that was kind of cool. Joe's, for those of you that don't know, Joe ran Consumer Lending and Countrywide. So the guy's like this incredible, like he's this name, right? He's really, he knows his stuff and he's done big things. And so it was exciting to talk to him. No problems. Talk to him. I sit down and I just go into my spiel about everything that's wrong and everything I want to do but can't do and blah, blah, blah. And I remember him saying, he says, "Man, you sure do have a lot of passion." He's just, and Joe's this Texas guy, right? So he's Texas accent.
He'll tell you straight up. Yeah.
He's like, "You sure do have a lot of passion, man. I really like it, but you don't know shit about mortgage banking."
That's very Joe Anderson for sure.
He's like, "If you want to learn," he's like, "That's all right." He's like, "I like you. I'll teach." And I remember, like, I think that's right around. I just realized I didn't know everything, and like there was this period of time where I think a lot of people suffered from this, and some people, it destroyed them. They couldn't get over the success that they had pre-2007, and they equated that with their efforts, and they weren't able to make the transition that, a lot of it was market, and there's a whole other side to mortgage banking it's so sophisticated, especially when you start to understand, what really drives the purchase market and the value of servicing and how all this works from an economic standpoint, all the way back to the secondary market, capital market side of it. It's just a really cool industry, man. And despite how much I've learned and the success I've had, I still have a lot to learn. There's so much left out there in mortgage and I think it's only going to get better because it's not staying the way it is. It's dynamic, it's evolving, it's changing. If you're not thinking about that next step and where the industry's going, the industry will eat you up.
I don't know if you know David Licken. David's got he's been in the industry a long time. He owned a couple of companies, tech side, mortgage bankers. He has a podcast called Licken on Lending. Great guy, and a voice for podcasting. Boy, he does a good job. But I was on his podcast. He was on mine also, and I can't remember which one it was, but he had a comment that you just basically repeated, and it was something along the lines of your greatest enemy to growing your business is your current success.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
And it was he said it better than that. Whatever he said was slicker than what I just said, but it was, you get the point. And I think that's basically what you're saying, is that for those of us like you that embrace change and know that no matter what you do, it's coming, well, then you do allow yourself to get out of your own way. Yeah. Right. And allow those things to happen, but maybe be a little bit more prepared because you're not so focused on your own short-term success.
That's right. Well, and a lot of it's just arrogance, right? It's like you can't, there's a saying, it's like, celebrate wins, don't collect trophies, right? Ever heard that one? Like that's wrong with being proud of what you've done and celebrating it. But man, don't put it on your bookshelf as a trophy, because it ain't going to ensure your next win.
No kidding. And then his Public Enemy that said, don't let a win get to your head or a loss to your heart.
There you go. That's
a good one as well. Little PE. You didn't think I'd throw in some PE quotes, Thomas, did you? to the Walk podcast. What are the things that you're hearing the most from your business partners? I mean, now that you're getting on the road, and I've seen you on LinkedIn and some other spots, taking some fantastic pictures with some of these partners of yours and Home Point. What are the things that are top of mind for them right now? And I would assume that a lot of these people fall into that bucket, that they do get caught up in their own success. And 2020 was insane, man. Like, the mortgage industry, those are the people that shouldn't be complaining about not getting to go on a vacation for the last 18 months or so, because they were making 4 or 5x what they've ever gotten used to making. So on the heels of that, or still in the midst of the tail end of that, what are you hearing from your business partners?
Oh, a lot. I mean, I think that, well, obviously there's the macro environment, around, what's going on. And so at some point rates are going to go up. I think that's, it will happen. It's just a function of a when, which means if you've structured your business around refi, that's a problem, and so I do think that, what's been really nice being out in the field is, we have some really good partners that get it, and I will say the common theme between the ones that do is they're focused on sustainability, and they're focused on probably a couple areas. I'd say is one, how do you really continue to control and captivate and plan your business around the purchase side? Mm-hmm. Because if you look at I think the one thing that is encouraging is you have, COVID has caused all these short-term supply issues around the purchase market, and so you're seeing all this home price appreciation and it's hyper competitive around people, cash buyers and trying to get homes and whatnot. That is problematic now. But if you look at the why, I mean, yes, some of it's the supply side and what's happened with COVID and the time it's taken to build homes, but you do have this massive pent up demand on the buy side for purchase. You have these generations that are now coming into age that are ready to buy a home, and some of that was because they were delayed. You had some of the generations were delayed. They live with their parents maybe a little too long. You also have the dynamic of I don't think we're gonna ever go back to the office. I mean, we'll have some people that'll be back in the office, but Home Point is I think a lot of companies, and in fact most companies, are probably going to live in some state of remote work, which is changing the dynamic of where people want to live, and so you're going to see, I guess what I'm saying is I think, you're going to see a pretty robust purchase market for the next 3 or 4, 5 years. And so I think, the partners that I think are going to be successful are the ones that are really positioning to take advantage of that market, but also recognizing that, look, the cost to originate a loan are too high. They're just too high. Like they're going to come down. And I think that also is linked to the recapture side of the equation. Name one other industry that works so hard to originate another customer that pays, upwards of $8,000 to gain that customer, but does on average, 20% is the performance of the industry for retaining those. It's horrible.
Yeah.
And so I think that the shift that you'll see is I do think there's going to be more consolidation on the servicing side. I think the originators that are sustainable are going to be the ones that figure out a way to not only captivate the purchase side of the business, but really build, either through combinations of lenders like Home Point, right, or working with. It's just not that I don't think, as Eric, I'm a wholesale guy. I'm highly focused because there's 2 ways to get physical distribution, right? You can access the I think right now we estimate there's probably close to 15,000, broker accounts out there. There's probably upwards of 50, 60,000 originators, if not 70,000 originators around the country that are working for brokers. So it's a great way to get physical distribution because, as physical distribution is important for purchase, right? You have to be one company that's figure out a way to drive purchase volume in a meaningful way, disproportionately as their volume, right? Without having originators local in market. Not one company's been able to do it. And so there's 2 ways to do it. You can do it through wholesale, or you can do it by retail, where you actually have the originators work for your company. And And it's not I chose wholesale because I think it's more efficient way as a lender to build scale, right? And I think the days of these very large scale retail companies are kind of problematic because they become very inflexible, and they start to become burdened with these cost structures that put them at a disadvantage to wholesale. And so I think where the market's going to go are smaller companies that are focused on origination, right? If that's non-Del, if that's a small regional retail player that's full correspondent, if it's a small broker, right? So they're focused on originations. They do that really, really, really well. They're able to run their business in an entrepreneurial way, and then they're signed up with and backed with lenders that have material scale, because scale is really important. And I've really come to appreciate that with my experience at Home Point. Just having scale and the benefit you get, when you're doing $1 billion a month, right, of volume as a lender versus if you're doing 10 billion a month, your cost is not that much different in terms of HR and IT and your infrastructure costs, and the efficiencies that you get with that incremental volume are huge. And then you layer on top of that the servicing side, it's even bigger. And so that's where I think it goes, is I think you see originations becomes really more, it breaks up into smaller players, right, that are nimble and more effective at being entrepreneurial. And then it's backed by scaled lenders, that provide the cost benefit of scale and the efficiency of scale and the flexibility, right? In that scenario, these originators can choose to do business with whoever they want to do business with,
right?
They have options.
Right, they can spread it out. They can hedge a bit. Do you sticking with the scale conversation and cost to originate? Do you get many questions or concerns about the gasoline that's been thrown on the technology fire that could fuel the conversation around the somewhat elimination of what the current originator looks like today, right? That if we're going to scale, if we're going to create efficiencies, if we're going to decrease our cost to originate, well, then we're going to do it through technology and sticking young people in a cubicle with a headset on, or click button, get mortgage, whatever. Are those things are you hearing more of that from your broker partners? And I'm curious, and how do you talk through that?
So there's a couple things to that. Well, one, let me give you I'll come back to the broker partner comments, because I have gotten a lot of insight into that. But I do find it funny, because I've actually, especially coming from it, I came into the industry on the technology side. And so my initial, lens that I looked through for probably the first 10 years of my career was, how do I automate people's job away? How do I make it? I wanted to create a box where a borrower or a vending machine, they go up to a vending machine, they could, insert some coins, click a button, and out would come a house and a loan, right? That was like, and you've seen this, I've seen this cycle play out. What'll happen is refis come, the refi boom comes, people, lenders make a lot of money. Because that's, if you look at this industry, money's made in between cycles. That's what's, very unique about mortgage, but they're also too busy to do anything innovative, right? And so then what happens is, but they start talking about how they're all going to change the world and going to do all this innovative things. And you get companies like, Microsoft was one, or Google or Amazon, or, they have all hey, we should come in and really fix mortgage because it's really screwed up and it should be automated. It should be people should go to a website and get a loan, that sort of thing. And if you've noticed over the last, I remember the first was 2000. Remember Microsoft tried to come in, and then you go back 5 or 6 years ago, Amazon was trying to come in, right? Yeah, and then they start to realize, oh my gosh, this is really freaking hard. There's I guess my point is a reason that that hasn't happened, right? It's not like the internet's a new thing at this point. There's a reason, and I'll tell you what I believe it is. So one, so much of the market is dictated by the back end, and so you're never going to be able to fundamentally change the way a loan is originated on the front end. It has to be done on the back end. It has to be done by Fannie, Freddie, the federal government, HUD. That's the only way you're going to be able to do it. And so at this point, we're entirely limited by their own creativity. And then the second reason is I don't think, if you just think about what we're actually doing, we're putting borrowers in homes, We're keeping borrowers in homes. This is where someone raises their family. It's a very personal thing. And I just don't ever see us, at least in my lifetime, getting to a world where a borrower or a person that wants to buy a home is going to feel comfortable doing that without human beings being involved in that.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't see it. I think you're going to still need some form. It might change. It's going to be automated. This is the piece I think people have a hard time reconciling. Yes, technology is coming. Efficiency is a must. It needs to happen. Things need to get more efficient, but it doesn't mean you need to remove the people, right? It means what, and so like applying back to your comment, what I'm seeing and what I believe the future is on the origination side is I'm seeing a lot of really cool models pop up where people are trying to lever originators, right? And so it's not about originators making less. It's about levering them so they can make the same amount, if not more, because they're doing more loans. Like
right.
That's the piece that has the reason why that hasn't changed is because there's a hyper fixation on how much comp you make per loan. There's a hyper fixation on that, and it's funny, if you look at all the cool stuff that has happened in like the last 8 or 9 years, day one certainty, all that, there's been all these things that have happened that should have created efficiency on the origination side and brought down our cost to originate that haven't.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? It's because it's structural, right? There's an organizational component to this. It's structural. And so what I'm seeing is companies are saying, look, we're going to redefine what the originator is and what they do. And we're going to make it more about adding value and really driving the experience with the consumer and less about these little individual kind of entrepreneurs that sort of are siloed, right? And because many times it's like everyone has their assistants and they have their way of doing things. And by the way, they've been successful for a reason. Their way works, but just because it worked last year, the year before, doesn't mean it's going to work. And so I think that companies will crack that. And the way you do that, by the way, is at smaller. Like you're seeing most of the innovations going to occur with the small brokers, non-del shops, smaller regional players. Reason for that is because they're able to be more nimble in how they think about the business. And by the way, and this, it's a highly personal thing. If you're going to go to an originator, a top originator, and say, I'm going to change the way you work and I'm going to lever you up, so you're going to make more money, but I'm going to pay you less per loan, there's a lot of trust that needs to come with that. And that's going to take a lot of energy by owners and people that really understand their business to work people through it, and so I think that's what I'm seeing is there's a lot of really cool ideas out there on how to not take the people out of it, not reduce people's overall annual compensation. It's like, hey man, like let's have you make the same amount, but here's how we got to collectively work together to create efficiencies. Because if we don't, we're dinosaurs and we're going to die. We're going to die.
Yeah. I've been working with somebody here recently. It's about a $225 million originator with a depository, but a small depository, pretty entrepreneurial, allows him to be relatively nimble. He's not unhappy where he is. But his comment to me was, I would love for somebody to show me how to scale me.
Yeah.
And I knew what he meant, right? And his point is not, don't tell me I can hire 4 more LOAs. That's not what I'm saying. How can I scale me in creative and efficient ways that maybe involve better leadership, better thought from leadership, also better technology and efficiencies that relate to those. And then I also think about, look, this is just me talking. I'm not a brokers are better guy. I'm also not a bankers are better guy. You know how Drew and I have always worked, which is I don't know anything until I know what's important to you. And until I know what's important to you and what your goals are and what you think is working and what isn't working, we have to go through that analysis before I can tell you what I think might be some suggestions that could create some value, right? But one thing I have noticed is that the large independent mortgage bankers, retail, one of the things they do struggle with, and especially the most entrepreneurial ones, are that their risk is if they attempt to make a change that could actually be really, really good for the street, the street's going to come to them and say, I didn't ask for that.
Right.
That wasn't my idea. And so to your point, I can understand at some level how the broker doesn't really come into the conversation with that same feeling of ownership. I mean, they already own their business, but they can choose to work with you or not.
That's right. And that's kind of my point. Is like, it's not about, because I'm with you, man. I mean, I spent years growing retail. I know some really good people that are awesome originators, awesome people, highly successful, and will always be successful on the retail side. It's, to me, it's not about that. It's what's going to support the innovation and the change. And I will say, from a lender perspective, if I approach that side first, in wholesale as a lender, I have no choice but to be better every day, because if I'm not better every day, I don't get loans. Like, people don't give me loans. And so it forces like this rapid, innovative mindset on the lending side, because you literally have no choice. It's feast or famine, die or live kind of, live or die kind of thing. Versus and then so that's the lending side. If you look at the origination side, the issue is really more about just how do you actually navigate people through it. And I think what you're raising is very true. I saw it as like these large scale retail platforms. Again, I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying, I don't think that's where you're going to find the innovation. And the reason why is there's so much risk. If you change something and you're wrong, your ability to kind of manage people through it and communicate it, and the downside risk you have of being wrong, it incents you to stay the same.
Yeah, you could lose 30% of your sales, your origination overnight.
Like, why change? Like, why change?
It's tough.
And that was, I don't want to talk about my past too much there, but that was part of the issue I struggled with in my prior role. And so versus if you're small, and this comes back to the people side, and because we've had a lot of change here at Home Point, and I can tell you the hardest part about it is communicating with people, getting them to see the bigger picture, getting them comfortable with it. And it's much easier to do that when you have direct personal relationships with someone, versus when you're this kind of large scale behemoth where people are just numbers. Like, it's just the reality. Like, you know what I mean? It's not good or bad, or like one thing's like, I'm not making a judgment on that. I'm just saying it's a lot easier to innovate in a third party model than it is in a large scale distributed retail model.
Well, and look, you're playing your game, and you're a fan of your game, and you've been really good and really successful with what you've done, and you've proven concept. So for those that you support, it would be hard to argue what you just said. I think one of the things I love about this industry is that human beings are not linear, to say it lightly. And what's important to one person is not necessarily important to others. Some people want to be involved in a large organization because they feel like it decreases their risk at some level, and maybe they're not chasing the same reward that others are chasing. And much like a consumer, a consumer has a tremendous amount of options when they look to secure a loan. And sometimes those options really boil down to, sometimes it's simply a commodity. Where am I going to get the best price? And other times it's, who's the person I trust the most? And then sometimes it's somewhere in between. And I think that's one of the things that we've always loved the most about this space. And also, leaders like you. I'm going to be sensitive to time and cut us here in just a minute. And when we stop the record button, don't go anywhere, so you and I can catch up for a minute offline. Anything you want to get off your chest though before we break? Anything and it doesn't have to be mortgage related. What are you doing outside of the industry to keep yourself busy and motivated? What gives you juice outside of mortgage banking?
It's these days it's my family. I really enjoy just hanging out, barbecuing on the weekends, and not being on an airplane. We are building a house, which has been, contrary to a lot of feedback, I've always told it's a horrible experience. I think maybe we just picked the right builder, but that's been a lot of fun, to be honest.
I think you've probably also been married to your wife long enough now to where you both know where to back off of each other, right? Right.
Let's be clear. She's entirely in charge.
Well, then that's why you're doing fine.
I'm along for this ride, man. It's what she's the boss on that one. But no, this has been great. I really enjoyed it, and would love to do it again one of these days, Eric.
Hey, let's do it again. If there's a topic you ever want to knock around, I'm always here to do that. Maybe next time we could figure out a way to do it in person. And look, man, until then, Phil Shoemaker, Home Point, thanks for hanging out with us on the walk. We appreciate it, bud.
My pleasure. Appreciate it.